And with that, welcome to Vagabond Nerds, the only original gangsters not fingered, literally or figuratively, by Tekashi69. As you may or may not have noticed, we are sans one nerd today, but we do have in his stead Genesis and Ann from ANX Gamecast. How are y'all doing?
Unbiased Ann. Unbiased Ann.
Unbiased Ann. What'd I call her?
Just Ann.
Just Ann.
Oh, unbiased Ann. I'm sorry. I'm going to get that wrong every other time from now on.
So, go ahead, Zach. Bring in their some other people's podcast right there.
Yeah, other people's podcast. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just saying. Usually when Jason plays that for me, it's completely different.
Right.
Yeah, there's a long history there. Anyway, how y'all doing?
Good.
Good. How are you?
I love the fact that you and Ann shop at the same Dillard's or
We do.
whatever.
Macy's.
Macy's.
Get this at
Really, I went
Macy's.
to Ross.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh, that's why he's the cheaper version. Just saying.
Makes sense.
Just saying.
Yeah, there does seem to be a theme here.
Yeah, well, when you call and coordinate early, you call and coordinate early.
We planned this out last month, so
Yeah. We didn't tell you, and you still came planned, so that's pretty cool.
Well, we're all intertwined.
Oh, good Lord. Instead of Jansen behind the boards, we got Zach. Zach, good morning, bud. Or good afternoon.
Greetings and salutations, campers. Welcome to DallasOnAir.com.
All right. Before we start, would you like to give any segues into ANX?
yeah, let's do a couple of plugs here. So the big news: we will be at Retropalooza in Arlington at the Arlington Convention Center, October 19th and 20th.
Yep.
And we have a booth there. We'll be doing giveaways all day long to promote our podcast. So special, just for your listeners and viewers, if you come to our booth and say, "Hey, we saw you on Vagabond Nerds," we will give you a free entry into one of our giveaways. And
Nice.
For more information on that to come, follow our Facebook page and Instagram page at ANX Gamecast. And, of course, our podcast is everywhere. So just Google us, ANX Gamecast, Spotify, or iHeartRadio,
SoundCloud.
SoundCloud. It's all over the
everywhere.
place.
It's everywhere.
So wherever you want it, you can get it.
I will tell you right now, crew, that I've seen their giveaways, and crap, man, I'm going to try to enter. Can we enter?
Maybe.
Doggone it,
We'll
man.
see.
Yeah, the answer to that is no.
Speaking of giveaways, we've got one coming up soon as well. So, but we'll be talking more about that as we get to through the month of October, and hopefully, unfortunately, when we get Sean back, who's being thoroughly molested by Bigfoot somewheres.
I
Jason,
bet
I thought you said he was in Arizona. Wouldn't that be aliens?
yeah, whatever.
Actually, no. They have. They
got some Bigfoots out there.
Yeah.
They got skinwalkers as well.
Yeah.
There's like no trees. Don't they live in forests and stuff?
You know what? That's an excellent point.
No, it's not what today's show is
Okay,
about.
sorry.
Not what today's show is about.
That's a different.
No, I'm not.
podcast.
Okay,
Shut
okay.
up. But, however, you will be at a convention for Bigfoot
Yes, actually,
on the same day.
Same weekend. I'll be in Jefferson at the Bigfoot conference out there with, pretty much everyone. So if you're into cryptozoology and not video games, go, visit us out there. We'll be in Jefferson, Texas. It is the official home of Bigfoot in Dallas, or in Texas, actually.
Shout out to Lyle.
Yeah, Lyle
Lyle.
and Ken and Nick.
Yeah.
I think Nick will be there too.
Will Nick be there?
I think so. But definitely Lyle and Ken. Also, is while we're doing, I guess, stuff about things. Titan Comics is sponsoring us.
Powered by today's show.
Powered by Titan Comics.
Who is?
Sponsoring us? Titan Comics.
There we go.
Titan Comics, of course, is the home for all of the things that you love geek. And if he doesn't have it, he will get it for you. So go visit them first, visit them last, visit them only.
Where would I go online for that?
Well, you can go to TitanComics.com. I would repeat, TitanComics.com.
Sean,
that's-
I miss you already. I can't stress that enough.
Or you can go visit Jeremy in person, say hey. He loves people who say hey to him.
Good luck with that, guys. All right, so we got some stuff to talk about today.
Do
What
we?
did we watch this week?
I saw an amazing documentary this week
Jesus.
on steak. I did not realize there was so.
So
many
anyway,
different ways to
Jason's
break
done
that up.
talking for the show.
I have a file and everything.
Documentary on steak.
we-
That sounds fun.
So what are we doing today? Borderlands?
I think we're doing Borderlands. No, we're going to talk some Joker. We've all seen it.
Small indie flick.
Small indie flick.
Yeah.
Actually, that's probably an accurate description.
Yeah.
The first 15 minutes or so, we are going to be spoiler free, so you can feel free to listen. After that, though, all bets are off, and we're going to let Ann just drop spoilers throughout. So be aware, but we'll come to that again here shortly. 2 quick points of mention. Right after our show last week, that following Monday, apparently Tom Holland did some begging, pleading, and crying, and now he's back in the MCU.
For 1.5 movies.
For 1.5 movies. The other big thing was, quite frankly, Crisis on Infinite Earths for CW is just getting better. We did get our first look at Kingdom Come Superman being played by Brown and Routh. Mm-hmm. That is one image I want to throw up real quick if you can, Zach, because this image, doggone it, man, I never thought we would see a live-action Kingdom Come, especially Superman, and never thought it would be Brandon Routh if we ever did. But he looks the part.
Oh, he does. He looks perfect. Although I have always wanted to see Kevin Sorbo as Kingdom Come Superman.
I don't know. Not after this. I mean,
we're getting Brandon Routh. I'm not saying I'm displeased at all. Also, they announced that Lila from Arrow. We don't know if it's going to be her though. Will actually be Harbinger.
Yeah, we did hear that too.
Yeah.
So this is all big DC news, and there's one tiny rumor going out there that the DC proper, what we see in the movie theaters, a small conversation going that we might see some version of them in this event as well, which would be astonishing to me. I mean, that would be awesome. Mm-hmm. But enough appetizers. Let's talk about what we came here to talk about.
The steak.
The steak. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Documentary on steak. I want to start with controversy first.
Okay. I think it's a good place to
start.
So
I think you and me were talking about this a little earlier, Dennis, and the fact that we have, doggone it, man. So you had a theater in California close for credible threats. You had warnings coming out of Oklahoma for credible threats. NYPD has staffed up extra security at all theaters showing the Joker due to credible threats. Having viewed this movie, I don't think it warrants it, but I'm still, even though I'm not surprised, I am amazed by the fact that we still have this issue, especially the more we go on. And why is it Joker? You know, I mean, we're talking about a movie that's saying, "Oh, it's violent," and that's one of the things I think we're going to talk about today. Is
it's
not. It's not John Wick. You know, I mean, John Wick's kill count in the first 30 minutes of his movie dwarfs this considerably. It's probably 3 times the amount of what we see in this movie.
But I think it's. I hear you. I've never seen John Wick, but I hear what you're saying. But I think it's a combination of the violence that is there combined with the almost darkness of the movie and the mental health maybe issues. It just comes across as kind of violent.
Well, I think it's just the connections with the shooting from the Batman movies. I think that's the main thing here. I don't think the movie itself, especially since no one saw it when those threats.
Exactly.
That's true.
Not the general public.
Right. They hadn't seen it yet, so I don't think the movie itself had anything to do with the specific threats. I think it just had the connection with the Batman movies.
Well, I think part of the controversy is that there were people who were saying that it glorifies the Joker and sort of, and I think part of the controversy is very political in the fact that it talks about how it's like, oh, I don't want to
slow down because you're going to get a spoiler warning. I already know you, so we're not there yet.
I'm avoiding that. That's what I'm saying. Is that there are political aspects that to the film that I think people are overhyping and making that connection with Aurora, and I think that there is. Again, we'll talk about this later, but there are certain messages in the film that are actually counter to all of that. But I think we're so hyper politicized now that the idea of listening to a certain thing the movie's really trying to say is being interpreted the wrong way.
Well, I think one point I wanted to make about it is I actually knew people who didn't go watch the movie just because of all the threats, and I didn't dig into all the numbers, but basically gun violence in America is on par with like car wrecks. So you're not, and that's not even talking about mass shootings. That's just all gun-related deaths in America is on par with car wrecks. So you're not going to stop getting in your car and going to work, or we came here to Dallas on there to
Right.
do Vagabond Nerds, but you will not do a movie that you actually want to go see. I say
Yeah. But
it's-
and the numbers actually are even more to your point. I think is very point because like of those deaths, 65% of them are suicides.
Right.
Right. So it's like that number is even statistically far lower. So
Exactly.
I mean, and again, I think a lot of this is hype, but it seems like people just want to have something to complain about or freak out about, and they just pick this movie.
Now, don't get me wrong. If there are credible threats out there
Right.
to a specific
I'd rather be
area,
safe.
right?
Yeah,
I want
of
to know
course.
about them, but I don't want to go hide under my bed either.
Don't get me wrong. I think what the movie theater did in California, I think it was smart.
Right.
It's very smart,
Yeah.
right? We'd rather,
masks or
yeah.
whatever.
Well, more importantly than that, because you do have, I think with the exception of Alamo Theater, I think they're the only ones that are allowing cosplay. But they are going to be very much seeing how it kind of plays out. There are going to be a lot more heightened in their security as well. But for the theater in California to actually sit there and say, hey, we're going to do the responsible thing. We're going to shut down because there is a credible threat. And it's sad that we have to go through that. But again, I am proud of the steps they took. Same thing with Aurora. I completely understand that theater not showing it.
Right.
Like there is no,
Yeah. You were talking about a copycat
yeah.
effect. That would be a
There-
perfect. Yeah.
I absolutely 100% understand that. But do I think it's going to happen? I mean, we always sit there and say that, it could happen anywhere, anytime. And that's true, but I like what you're saying, right? I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to run away from it. I mean, it did change, I will say. For me, it did change it a little bit. I decided to go to a more day showing of this, an earlier showing than rather a night showing. So it does change it a little bit, but it's just being smart right now to kind of see how this plays out. Obviously, it's not going to stop it. It looks like it overtook Venom's numbers for the highest Thursday night premiere.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to take over the weekend numbers for the highest October opening was Venom. So we are seeing stuff to this movie. And having said that, going into the movie itself, oh my God, this acting, Joaquin Phoenix,
Oh my gosh.
going into it, and we'll start. Let me start with this, Jason. Yes or no? Like, dislike? What do you do, Phil?
I almost feel like saying like or dislike to this film is inappropriate. I think it is. I think the movie is masterfully done, artistically, visually. I think he does an amazing job of telling this story. I think the story is very well told. I think it's excellently done. But I think if you walk out of this theater feeling anything other than disturbed, or maybe rethinking a few things, then you weren't paying attention.
Yeah. And
I kind of feel the same way. I don't. He gets on me all the time because sometimes I'll stay on the fence.
On the fence.
But this movie was weird to me. Like the acting, I already knew going in because I love Joaquin Phoenix. I think
Yeah.
I said that last time I was here. His acting was just remarkable, but the story was just so. It kind of left you like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't love it. But I didn't not like it. It was just very strange to me.
Yeah, the blue blouses agree.
Yeah, but he like said it way better.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the same thing. It's hard to say like or dislike. And I always have an opinion. Anybody who's listening to our podcast, I got 5 or
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
strong opinions about everything. I think it's a situation where, like you said, just from a movie standpoint, the cinematography, the acting, all off the charts,
Yeah.
right? But there's something to this movie where I just didn't like it.
I think Eric Shirley of Movie Geek Feed said it best, where he
Actually, I think it was his son who
his
wrote
son,
it, yeah.
who had made the mention that he felt like he needed a shower afterwards. He felt dirty watching it. My thing is this: strictly from a movie standpoint, I loved this film. I think it hit all the right notes. I love the fact that you touched on cinematography. This thing was beautifully shot.
It is brilliantly
I
shot.
mean,
yeah.
my God, you feel what's happening. You, doggone it, you feel very much. The way this movie makes you feel is how exactly the music, the soundtrack to this, the
Yes.
score itself,
Yeah.
the acting, everything. Joaquin Phoenix absolutely deserves to be in the running for Best Actor of the Year. I mean, that's not even a question.
Right.
Right.
And I'm not a huge Joaquin Phoenix fan. I'll tell you right now, there's only a couple of movies I really like him in. But I mean, this one, This one took me by surprise, and this one I want to say when we first saw the trailer, I was even one of the ones that said I don't know how I'm going to feel
Yeah,
about this
you
movie.
did.
I don't see anything that's really standing out towards me or anything else like that. But from the moment you walk in, it does what a movie's supposed to do. It transports you into that world. It's just not a world you want to stay in.
Yeah, no.
Well, I think this is the difference. It's not that it's a movie. I think this is legitimate art.
Yeah.
Right. Good.
It is. It's an art house film.
Yeah. I think one of the things that people, I forget who. So the name escapes me at the moment. I think it was it Martin Scorsese?
Yes.
Who even said that Marvel films are
Right.
they're not true cinema. I kind of agree with that. I think in the fact that if we take cinema as artwork, and art is supposed to bring you up as a mirror to yourself, right, and make you rethink some things. Art is supposed to cause you to rethink your life in many ways. I'm not saying that Marvel movies are bad, but what I'm saying is I agree with. I think he was being an arrogant prick when he said it. But I think his broader point is, I mean the Marvel movies, they're great, they're very entertaining, and there's some stuff you can get out of it. A lot of it's really good, it's well done. But artwork should disturb you from time to time. It should reaffirm you from time to time. This movie, though, is pure art, and it disturbs you, genuinely.
So here's my thing. I don't disagree with the fact that what he said can be what he said. If he feels that way, let him feel it. That goes for anyone. You feel a certain way about something, I'm not going to crap on your opinion. I don't care. And all these people are coming out going, or crap, he doesn't know what he's talking about, blah, blah, blah.
You crap on Jason's opinion all the time.
Yeah. No, I'm crapping on Scorsese's thing. But my whole thing is
It's
this.
like the fifth person who's mentioned that, by the way.
Yeah,
right?
nobody cares.
Anne agrees with me.
No, Anne didn't agree with you about 2 weeks ago. But seriously, Anne's like, shit, no, don't go back.
Never
You're gonna
live that down.
You're gonna piss them off. But no, it's this. It's like everyone has their opinion, and they're right to have it. All these people coming out and saying, "Oh my God, his opinion was horrible, and he doesn't know what he's talking about." He knows what he's talking about for himself. He can have an opinion. He can. Everyone can have an opinion. That's the biggest problem that I have with what he said, and also with the people with this movie. You have the right to feel however you want to feel. But I also have the right to feel however I want to feel. And if I'm going to give you the ability to let you have your opinion, I expect the same. And then I think that's kind of the problem that we have with this movie as well. It's like, you got to understand it's this, this, and this. Well, no, that's what it is to you, and that's great. That's fine. But don't cloud my judgment of the movie because you don't like it or you don't want to do it. And I think that's what happened with Scorsese, is that he got caught in that whole debacle because he spoke his mind. I like the fact that he said it. I don't agree with him. That's me, because I think
don't agree with that
Yeah,
either.
I don't agree
I think the Marvel movies have been what they needed to be. I will say this with DC, and I think this movie proves it, is the fact that as great as it is, as awesome as it is, it continues to follow DC's mode of, we're going to show you the real world implications of our film. And that's the problem that I think a lot of reviewers, a lot of journalists, when I use that term loosely nowadays, a lot of the media, that they don't want to see a reflection of themselves. And if anything this movie did is a reflection on actually current times, even though this thing is shot for the 1980s, the early 80s, this movie reflects so much of, I think, the mentality of what's going on right now that people just don't like seeing it. And it's the same thing with all DC movies, is what I found out. Marvel does want to represent this hope and the classic Christopher Reeve feel of Superman, where there's always going to be some good on there. But the truth of the matter is, tell that to someone who's not in the best living conditions. Tell that to someone who's growing up with strife in their day-to-day walk. And DC has always done a good job, and they are continuing to do a good job with this film, to sit there and show the realistic implications of what, in this case, madness becomes. Right? Mm-hmm. This film, if nothing else, is just a really good look at a descent into madness that this character's going through. You could have called this thing anything else, and it would not have been a problem. I have a big believer if this, and they did. Falling Down, Michael Douglas, back in the 1980s. This movie has that same following, where this man's just had enough, and he's gone through one day, and he just breaks one day. Yeah. It doesn't justify it, and that's the thing about this movie. And as we're getting into spoiler territory. That's the thing about this movie that people have to understand. It is a look at what could happen, and sometimes, unfortunately, what does happen with these people who in society just, they they cannot connect with the rest of us.
On to that point, which is before we get into spoiler stuff, there is one thing I did want to mention because I think he put it in 1981 very specifically, right, for a reason. We have for one reason we'll get to later, but the most important aspect of this was, and I remember in the back of my head, I just couldn't. I wanted to double check the date. So
Pulling out the folder.
yep, it is
The official
thematically.
This is how
Facts.
much he hates computers and stuff. You see me
Facts.
here, iPad, phone. Jason's like, I wrote it down and I smoke signaled it.
It's thematically important too. Anyway, but 1981. So the history of mental illness and how we've dealt with it as a society is rocky. And we used to be able to commit people involuntarily, right? But
Right.
there was this big push to sort of de-institutionalize people, right? And so there was a lot of back and forth. But in 1981,
Don't pound.
Reagan repealed. Carter had brought back some stuff that Kennedy wanted to do, but then the problem was Reagan wanted to cut back on a lot of funding, and there was a huge push from the left as well to get rid of these institutions. So an important point of the film, and it's not really a spoiler, is they mention that they can't give him his medications anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because their funding was cut. That happened in 1981 with the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. So what happened was that basically all the politicians got together, right and left, and said, "Well, you don't want to institutionalize anyone anymore forcibly, and we want to find budget spending to cut back on. We'll go ahead and do this." So that actually happened, and that is very much a tipping point in the film. And I think that's the bigger message to the film that people are missing is if you walk out of this movie not realizing that there are people who need help for a lot of reasons, and that if you as a society throw them away and reject them, then you are going to get what you deserve. That is a theme of the movie. Joker himself is again, without spoiler, we all know that there's this big thing with the clown masks and everything. In many ways, Joker is just a more extreme version of what everyone else is writing over, right? All the things that comes out throughout the film, there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot in the film. Romney's 47% quote during his run is echoed with Thomas Wayne talking about clowns. Again, no real spoiler. This is all very deliberate. They're saying, hey, Scorsese's using this as a way of saying, hey.
Who's Scorsese? Because he didn't direct anything in this one.
I'm sorry.
Todd Phillips?
Todd Phillips.
There we go.
But he produced
Same
it, though. Yeah, same thing. Todd Phillips did an amazing job of saying, hey, there's a broader message to this film, which is that these people who go off and do these terrible things are human beings with needs. That doesn't make them good, but it doesn't mean that they are people who need help. And if you don't help them, if you keep cutting back the things that are supposed to catch them from going too far, then this is what you're going to get. Maybe it's on the micro level of the lone shooter and the crazy nut job, but maybe it's going to be riots where people are like, we're fed up with this crap. You're taking. You're not replanting the trees, so to speak, and you've left us out in the cold, and we're going to do something.
Okay, so let's talk about that, right? So now we're officially, you ready, Ann?
Oh yeah.
Spoilers. From here on out, guys, spoilers for the rest of this show.
Hey.
So watch it, come back. If you're not going to watch it, then you've been warned. Spoilers.
Keep the feed going. Just
Yeah.
just mute it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Put us on
exactly.
mute. We'll do like hand puppets and stuff. Here's the thing about this movie that really irritates me. Shut up, Jason. That really irritates me from some of these reviewers is they keep referring to him as an anti-hero. That he's the anti-hero of this movie and they don't understand why people would do that. First and foremost, there is no protagonist in this film at all. There are only antagonists. There are only the people that are being brought down. You could sit there and look at Thomas Wayne, who's introduced into this film, but even he comes off as a giant a-hole. The Joker himself is not an anti-hero. He is, an anti-hero is a John Wick type film. It's it's even The Punisher. It's Rambo, stuff like that. That's an anti-hero. He just wants to do good, but through any means necessary. This is not an anti-hero. He's not trying to start anything. He accidentally starts a movement that was not deliberate by his actions. He doesn't care about anyone else, really. What he wants is the adoration of people. He wants someone to notice him. That is not protagonist in any way, and it's not an anti-hero in any way. The city, I love this. Gotham, for the first time since probably 89, since Tim Burton's Batman, is its own character. You feel Gotham in this being presented.
So for that reason, I'm going to disagree. I think he is the quote-unquote hero in this movie because of the nature of Gotham in the climate of the city at the time. They mention it multiple times. It's getting crazy out there. It's getting crazy out there. So you need somebody to come in and kind of reel him in. He might not have done it on purpose, right? But we can talk about Rosa Parks, who didn't do things on purpose. But it's still, you are still a hero for taking a stand at a certain point. And that's what what Joker did in this movie.
I don't know if I would go that far. I mean, we're talking about someone who took a stand but did not incite violence, right? If she was present, if it's a Rosa Parks type thing and they're present, then Rosa Parks' push wasn't to incite violence. This movie with the Joker, he wants to incite whatever. Well, really, he doesn't even want to incite necessarily the violence that we see with the crowds. He's happy that it's doing that, and he's happy that he's causing change, but more or less, he's happy that he's getting attention. So much so that even when you get to the climax of the film on the talk show, he goes back to, well, you just want to make fun of me. You don't care about me. Mm-hmm. Like, that's his thing, is like he wants to be noticed for himself.
But he also, regardless if he wants to be or not, he represents the masses.
He represents the change that's needed, just in the wrong way. Again, it's not a Rosa Parks change where it's a change that needed to happen. It's a change that for the movie where he needs to have it shown as there does need to be a change, but not through the violence that they cause. I mean, even going into the end with the final riot that's going through, that is the first time we see a glimpse of the future protagonist and the creation of Batman, right?
Which is beautiful thematically.
Which is just, by the time you get to that last scene, and I love, for me, when it ends where he's talking to the psychiatrist before he kills her as well.
Yeah.
And he's talking to her, and he flashes back on the alleyway with Bruce and his parents, and he's laughing. She's like, "What's so funny?" He goes, "I just thought of a joke." Because even in his mind, he's already thinking, "What did I do to this? What's going to happen to this kid?" You know, I mean, there's all these little underlying things.
I got lost for a second there because I was like, did he just imagine all this? Was this not real?
I do want to talk about that in a little bit. I want to come back to that. Because I want to talk about this concept of him as the hero. And I agree with Genesis on this. I think it's not wrong to call him a protagonist from a storytelling perspective, because he's the character that everything goes through. He does go through a version of the hero's journey where he starts off as one thing, he changes, he learns, he grows, and becomes something new. It's just he's not the good guy, right? He is, and he's in the film depicts him as the villain, or not the villain, but as without justifying him, you understand him. And I think the one thing that we were talking about was like the violence and how terrible this is. If you really look at it, and again, he had his maximum body count is 9 people,
and that's pushing it.
And that's pushing it because we assume that he killed Sophie and the daughter.
We assume. I don't think.
Which is fine. I'm just saying from points like his maximum personal body count is only 9 people. Of those 9, only 4 are killed with a gun. And again, it's a 38 special, which was back in the day known as the Saturday Night Special. For that time frame, which is why they chose that specifically. And of the ones that he did, 3 of them are, again, assuming 9, 3 of them are off screen. This is not a brutally violent movie, but what it does very, very well is it builds tension and makes you feel the brutality of each death. And I think that's the difference. I think that's what really makes people uncomfortable, because all these people who are crying about it and screaming about it are the same people who talk about how wonderful Saw is, right? And they love The Walking Dead, and they talk about, like you said, John Wick movies with abandon. there is one genuinely brutal death that I thought maybe couldn't be shown on over-air television, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And even
Which
even that,
is with the scissors. But even then, you could probably get away with it with some minor edits and so it's like it's not really that brutal, but it makes you feel it.
Yes.
And it's that I think that's what makes people feel very uncomfortable with it is, oh my gosh, this is a real death. Like you really feel it as a real human being who's died, and that's a problem.
And you feel scared for the witness.
Yeah.
Well,
The
no,
one
I think
who's
that's a good
witnessing
point because you're right. It wasn't that violent when you really look at the head count, but you put it perfectly. The way that it was directed, the music, everything put together, it's like it just feels so uncomfortable because his mental health or whatever word you want to use, his state of mind.
Yeah, psychosis.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just
I think it's a situation where the deaths in the movie, even though they were limited, were gory and graphic.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing there, and especially, and I think the problem with this movie and trying to rate it or say if you like it or not, and talk about who's the hero and who's not, it's too much of real life, but it has a DC label on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing with the deaths in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It is still, to a certain extent, a comic book movie, and there's been no comic book movie like this. Logan got a little graphic, but it's still, I don't think it was as graphic as this.
I think Logan was much more graphic.
Well, yeah, I'll sit there and say that as far as goriness, nothing's going to top The Walking Dead for me right now. One scene alone where Negan kills Glenn this movie doesn't even come close to that. But what it does is it makes it real. It makes you feel real. All the other gore that we've seen, it's over the top, so you kind of get desensitized to it, unfortunately.
It becomes fantasy.
It becomes fantasy.
And your brain works like, that's not how that works.
And this one, they said, no, it would be this. It would be like this. The score was done in such a way that it kept you uneasy throughout the entire movie, which I loved and appreciated because everything played into this. Todd Phillips, when they told me, when you read, hey, dude, the director of the Hangover trilogy is going to direct a Joker movie, I'm like,
huh?
What?
Yeah.
Like, that's not the type of Joker, So it was,
You're thinking more, oh, great, now we're getting bat nipples again.
yeah, and it was weird, but this film, I almost want to say it's required viewing.
Yeah.
Because it's very much, unfortunately, it's very much a reflection of society. It's very much a reflection of mental health. The laugh that he has in development, and I'm only going to give the initials for it, but it's known as PBA. We're not talking about the Professional Bull Riding Association, but it's known as PBA.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it. I've tried.
It exists. This exists to where there's a small population where it's one or two things. You either cry uncontrollably over anything, or you have a smaller percentage that when they're in a situation, they just laugh. And this movie very much mimicked. So for those who don't know, the Joker, visually, you've got Bob Kane, you had Bill Finger, and who was the other one? The inker for
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember.
Joker's first appearance is Batman #1. But when they first saw the initial designs for the Joker, I think it was Bill Finger who said, man, that looks a lot like the movie The Man Who Laughed. And The Man Who Laughed itself is about someone who's scarred and can no longer have any other emotion than smiling. And, it's done by his king, who intentionally scars him to remember, so that he remembers what a loser his father is. It's really deep stuff, and this is a silent film from back in the 20s.
It's based on a Victor Hugo novel.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and the guy who did it was interesting. I've been waiting on this.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Yeah, it was Conrad Veidt, who later would go on to play Major Henrik Strasser in Casablanca.
Yeah.
He was the German officer going after Laszlo.
Yep. So, and it's, but like that movie, it was a forced thing upon him. In this movie, it's a forced thing upon him. Arthur Fleck is a victim of childhood abuse, a victim of a mother who was just as insane, but this laugh is brought upon by head trauma that was given by the stepfather. I mean, it's showing you everything on how it led to this. So you do feel a little bit. You feel like, man, that's a hard life. And again, it goes back to It was said in Alan Moore's Killing Joke, which a lot of people count as one of the definitive origin stories for the Joker. You're just one bad day away from making one or the other choice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is a line he doesn't there's an homage to that scene when he's in Sophie's apartment. He said, "I had a bad day."
Yeah.
And it's like it was his break. But I think the broader point though is with the film is it's not one bad day. It's a lot of bad days.
Yeah.
And at any point something could have stepped in and stopped it. At any point Thomas Wayne could have responded and sent a little cash, and if he had stayed on
Or just helped.
or helped, that's what I'm saying, just a little bit of help, this wouldn't have happened. Right? And I think that's sort of the message that bothers a lot of people is it is absolutely telling you no holds barred. Just a little compassion from you, and this doesn't happen.
Right.
And I think that's the real problem. Because it does. I think the dirtiness that I felt, I've been dealing with this one, is it does make you. Again, it's the idea that you, having compassion for another human being, can stop this kind of a thing from happening. That's all he ever needed, was some genuine compassion from one human being, and he doesn't do this. But he, again, and like everyone else, is feeling this lack of compassion. And the problem is, that means when we look at ourselves, it makes us the villain, I think, in many ways. Because we realize we're a part of that society that's forgotten these people.
Well, and De Niro was, I think, that he's what drew it in for that. He was the cherry on top. He was the person that didn't care. And so when you see that last scene play out, it is, guys, we've all seen headshots before in movies. That one was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one where he takes out, it's Murray, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Murray Franklin.
For some reason, we all knew it was
You
coming.
knew it was coming. Yeah.
And for a lot of reasons, right? This was an exact scene from the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel by Frank Miller. This plays out exactly the same, down to the kiss.
Yeah, of the Dr. Ruth.
Of the Dr. Ruth-like character, down to that kiss.
I have an image of that if you in the email if you see it. In the Dark Knight, he comes out and he kisses. I mean, he even it's a full blown kiss. Now again, in the comic, when he does that, he's got the Joker chemical lipstick, and so she goes mad and dies, and he kills everybody.
Okay.
But this is a Joker without the gimmicks, right? That's the thing and I think that's the other thing is it does. Him pulling out a 38 and killing him is something we could see happening in the real world.
Yeah.
And that was the thing is that this man, I could really talk hours on the implications of what this movie is, right? And that's a sign of a movie. Maybe it doesn't have to be a good movie, but that is a sign of a movie that's done its job.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question because I got a little. When I saw the preview, I didn't go read about it. I went in fully just naive. I don't know what's going to happen here. But I was hoping, I was like, is this going to be like a prequel? Because I'm like, who's Arthur Fleck? What happened to Jack, on the original, well, I say the original Batman, but 1989.
Yeah.
And I was like, if this is 1981, that doesn't line up with that timing. And even the killing when they kill the parents in the alley and they ripped her necklace, like that scene was in Batman 1989, but it wasn't with clowns. So I couldn't figure out. I'm like, is this supposed to be like an isolated? I can tell he wants to say something.
Yeah. So let me jump in on that one. So that's part of the reason why I don't like this movie, right? If I'm not mistaken, this is going to be the standalone. There's going to be no universe created. There'll be no sequel. This is just it. So that's why I don't like this movie. I feel like it was unnecessary. Like, I'm not, again, the acting, the cinematography, all that stuff was great. I just felt like the movie itself was unnecessary. I kind of think of it two different sides of the world here, but Ant-Man, right? What I said about Ant-Man on our podcast was this is a super family-friendly movie. I don't like that. If I wanted to go see a Disney movie, a true Disney movie, I would go watch Toy Story. I don't want to see that in my comic book movies, right? Same thing here. If I want to see a movie, I want to save those emotions, like you said, the talking points, the stuff that makes you think about how you fit in with society and what you can do to help and all that. I kind of want to save that for a movie. I don't know. I save those emotions for movies based off true stories and kind of things like that. Is if I go into that movie knowing it's going to make you sad or make you angry about something that happened to these real people. This is not a real person. They made you feel like it was, but it's not. So I want to save those emotions for that. If I want to see a comic book movie,
Yeah, but
I kind of want to see
it's
a
not a real
comic book movie.
It's not a real person, but it's real. It's based on real life circumstances.
Right, and that's what I don't want from my comic book movie.
So if this is-
to this extent.
So if they had called this The Clown, and it was New York and not Gotham, and Thomas Wayne was Ted Phillips or something, then that goes away for you.
Yep, it goes away. Yeah, if I don't see that DC in the beginning of that movie, it goes away. I don't know a better way to explain it. It just does, and because I think the timing is, I don't want to say it's wrong or off, but the timing is just coming off these huge successful comic book movies. I think people are going to go into it and they're going to feel a certain way about it going forward, and I don't necessarily I don't want this movie to turn people away from our comic book movies going forward because they think it might be something similar to this. I don't want that to happen at all because I still want my comic book movies.
But I think that's why it's set in 81. I think that's why it's set outside this universe. It's set for that audience who, much like most of us growing up, we had Elseworlds Tales, which were reimagining of the origin stories for a lot of people.
Or
we
just
had
stories in general,
Marvel's What If, right? You know, we're used to seeing stuff like this. From a comic book fan standpoint, this was going to be the next evolution. Marvel's working on it, but theirs is going to be animated and on TV. But look at one of their What If stories already. It's a zombies. It's Marvel Zombies. On one of their What Ifs. So it's stuff like that. And I totally get, right? And I think I told Jason that too. There's a couple of things that you could absolutely just have called this, and it would be not a comic book movie.
Right.
But
and nobody would have noticed.
Yeah,
Right.
and no one would have cared. They just would have been like, "Did you see Todd Phillips' new artistic house film?
Right.
That was awesome."
Right.
But that's the problem that I have is that we have reviewers. I'm not comparing you to this person I'm about to talk to you, but theatlantic.com. And yeah, I'm going to call this person specifically out because I saw that posted by one of the people on our Facebook. The review.
Hi, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much. David Sims' review. Again, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I'm totally fine with that. If he doesn't like the movie, and that's not a problem. What I have trouble with, though, is this. Again, reviewers are journalists who don't do their damn homework, and it pisses me off. When I read the line, were the Joker to lean into his comic book inspiration, the broadness of Arthur's characterization might be forgivable. Problem I have with this is Todd Phillips actually did do comic book inspired stories for this film. Had this numbnut actually done his research on that, he would have known that there are way darker stories for the Joker than what even Todd Phillips presented. But to sit there and
there are many deep
oh my
homages
gosh,
in this
Arkham
film.
Asylum, the book by another book by Alan Moore. Read that. Dave Sims, whatever your name is, I don't care. Why don't you read that? Come back and tell me if you think this is dark, because it's not as dark as it could have been. The other thing is they pulled so many. The Dark Knight Returns novel. They pulled from scenes from that. They pulled scenes from The Killing Joke. They had a couple of scenes, and doggone it, it's going to escape me now. All that to sit there and say there was at least 4 to 6 different scenes in this movie that were pulled directly from the comic, and source material that was pulled from the comic. Yes, a lot of it was driven by Scorsese's The Taxi, or Taxi Driver, Taxi Driver.
King of Comedy.
Well, that was another one. King of Comedy, Taxi Driver. They pulled stuff from The Man Who Laughs. You could tell the inspiration for where it was coming from. But he did not leave out source material. So it irritates me when I see a reviewer go, if they had just done this, you can have your opinion. Had you just stuck with what you were going through and just saying, I don't feel it because of this, this, and this, that's fine. Don't ever put a line in, though, that says that it just needed to lean into its comic book inspiration. It did. The problem is you're not used to reading that because you're a Sunday comic book fan.
Yeah, you're a poser.
You just want to come in when you think it's fine and pretty and dandy, but dude, do some damn research.
Moving on to something that's of that concept, the homages. Zach, do you have? I sent one of the emails has has three Jokers sort of lined up. If you see it, I don't know if y'all can see it, but one of the things
I was gonna say it's not going to include Jared Leto's version.
No,
I take it.
no,
I
it
think
does not. Yeah, because like visually, there's two aspects. Is for the Joker specifically though, he is this version is an amalgamation of the Heath Ledger Joker and the Cesar Romero version. And I don't know if we have the image where I put them up sort of side by side.
Yeah, I still don't agree with it.
Well, but if you look at the smile that's painted on Joker's final face, it is very clearly the Cesar Romero version. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, one end goes up, the other end sort of goes sideways. That's exactly how Heath Ledger's scars did. If you look at his makeup, one goes up, one goes to the side.
Yeah, the picture that you chose for this does not exemplify that.
Well, I don't care.
Thanks for not proving your point.
Hey, shut up and go away. So it's like they clearly were pulling for him from a bunch of different points. Again, his hair, it's longer like Ledger's, and it's a brighter green, but it's slicked back. Like he's his own version, but it's a little different. But they're clearly pulling these visual cues, particularly from Cesar Romero, where everyone else goes with a darker purple. Cesar Romero's is more of a magenta, right, to show up better on screen. Just for his name, Joaquin Phoenix is
it's burgundy.
It's burgundy, but it's a brighter burgundy. But again, and there's another image I have where it's Joker and the curtains behind Murray Abrams. It's the same color palette. It's just his costume is a more saturated version of the colors on those drapes. I mean, visually speaking, it's just so well done.
Again, visually speaking, this movie was magnificent. I mean, everything. If it doesn't win at least best cinematography, I would be shocked.
Yeah.
And that's after seeing something like Endgame or seeing something like, I can't think of another movie outside of Endgame where it was such a broad palette to work with. But the problem with Endgame is half of that was fake.
Yeah, it was all.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think the thing really about the cinematography that you really feel is when it's about the people, it's close.
yeah.
Right?
Oh, it's claustrophobic.
It's almost claustrophobic. Everything's very small, and you're real close to the characters. But as soon as you step outside, right, you get to feel how almost oppressively large the city is, right? All of the shots they're long and they're prolonged and they're very far away from the main characters, so that they're so small, right, on the screen. Everyone's so small when you pull against the broader city and how big and just seemingly looming that city is.
Yeah.
It's just, like I said, it was brilliantly done.
So here's my question for the room, because I'm still not sold on seeing this movie. You said that this is required viewing as a film fan. Is this required viewing as a Batman reader?
Yes.
Why?
Yes, because a lot of this is touched upon the history that has come before, which I'm going to take one more slam, which David Sims doesn't understand. It was. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that they took from Batman and Joker's history, and they made it in such a way that it was you could understand how that plays out in the real world. And I know that that's probably a term that people hate hearing. Well, this is what it would look like in the real world. Mm-hmm. Well, I would love Iron Man, but I know I'm never going to see a suit yet, not within the next 15 years maybe, of a suit that works that way. But for this, to see some of the stories that they were able to bring to life and have a different aspect on it, yeah, it's if you're a Batman fan, I do believe this is required viewing.
So for me, to answer from my viewpoint, if you're a comic book fan, there's a difference between I like the comic book movies and I'm a comic book fan.
Yeah.
Two totally different things.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And I'm not knocking one or the
Right,
other.
yeah.
But if you're a comic book fan, yes, you need to go see this movie. If you have become a comic book movie fan over the past, 5 years or so, or even 10 years with MCU or whatever, I don't really think this movie is for them.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, no,
I don't think so either.
Comment. Yeah, I agree.
I don't
with
think
that.
so either.
So just wherever you fit in that You know, that's and I left this movie. The first thing I said was this was hard to watch.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
It was hard to watch, and this better get me somewhere. And like I said earlier, there will be no more. So at that point, I almost threw my phone because I was just like, I've now been subjected to this like great movie, horrible movie though.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah,
that is
great.
great. That is a
really
valid
great
thing.
horrible
Great
movie.
film,
Yeah.
horrible movie.
Yes,
Right.
Thank you.
And I get nothing else after. Like
Yeah.
this better lead to I better be able to see this guy go down, right? Or something in this
There needs to be a
particular
payoff.
universe.
Yeah,
right.
you want the reward.
And it's just
there's-
like nope.
And instead, the very last image that we see is oh my gosh, I can't think of his name. Is a Charlie Chaplin-like comedy move, because he's just gone insane, and that's how we know that he killed the last psychiatrist. Because as he's stepping, he's leaving bloody
Blood.
footprints behind him.
Okay, but I want to. Can we talk about the end?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because I want to go back to what I
Yes.
said.
Yeah,
I know you
we're
have-
running out of time. I want to get where you're going. You got like 4 minutes.
No, we got about 7, but let's try.
My confusion, or not confusion, but my like, well, wait a minute moment is, wasn't that the same psychiatrist in the beginning?
It was.
No.
No, it's
No, it
not the
wasn't.
same actress. It is, but
No,
they are.
it's different.
They're,
Was it?
No,
Oh,
different
I
actress.
was
could have
confirmed. Yeah.
sworn. Okay.
I thought it was
look-
too, but it's not.
They did that very deliberately to make her look similar, but it's a different
It's
actress.
a different actress.
Oh, okay.
And there's 2 things that it's supposed to do. One is to recognize, like it's meant to to feel the beginning of the movie where he's with his original social worker. It's
Yeah.
meant to mirror. It's this that his life is just it's the same but different.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Well, that says that answers something for me.
Because I had the
then.
same question too. I'm like, is that
Let her
different?
finish,
Or
let
is
her
it-
finish.
yeah.
Oh, but I thought I could have sworn I thought that was the same lady, but she looked all nice. She looked way nicer. And then when he's sitting there laughing, and she's like, "What's so funny?" And he's like, "You wouldn't understand, or you wouldn't find it funny, or whatever." Again, like I said earlier, I had a moment where I was like, "Was none of this real? Is he really just
It
institutionalized?"
has some Shutter Island. Shutter
Yeah.
Island.
Yes.
In it.
So-
It has some Shutter Island.
So
I
we
think.
talked about this.
That's where I
Okay.
want to go. Yeah.
Jason agrees with you on that. I don't. I think
Okay.
there were definitely parts of it. First off, to have a point of view in a movie where you are in the shoes of the psycho, that's not even, Anthony Hopkins. You didn't even do that with his character in Psycho. But to sit there and have the point of view coming from Arthur Fleck, which we don't really know is an Arthur Fleck or not, because all this talk about, is he going to be Thomas Wayne's love child or whatever, that's no. We know that he was adopted.
Yeah.
Once again, it went from, they gave the Joker a background. No, they just gave the Joker a background on how he became the Joker. They didn't give a background on who he is.
Right.
They still, once again, managed to subvert that, which is great, because I don't want to know. But because there were certain points in the movie where they do go back in and they show you later, oh, by the way, the scenes that you thought happened, those didn't happen.
Right.
Jason you feel that it kind of leaves it open for that at the end.
Well,
My feeling on it is that no, with the exception of the girlfriend, who turned out not to be a
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Which, by the way, the whole time I was like, "How could he pull this girl?" But
Yeah, and that's
made more
how I
sense
was.
later.
Yeah.
Which
It's
Jason
design.
tells me all the time.
At least should I know.
Shut up. But that's how those moments. This is the moment specifically called out for that. That's what that did. The moments once he's already in the asylum, when he's already talking, those are happening. And I love the fact that they did actually re-catch him, right? Because at the end, for a little bit, he's out and about, but then he actually ends up back in the psychiatric ward, which again, right? Todd Phillips maybe leaving a little bit of ambiguity onto whether or not the events happened. That's fine. We know for a fact who got killed because they kept saying that over and over again. How could you have done this? We know that the news reports that were coming out talked about the fact that he showed up, right? So we know definitely a lot of the events happened. That's where I will sell it on, where those events did happen. It's just to your point. When you think, well, did they or did they not?
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sold that they happened, but I'm not 100% sold that they didn't.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm 100% sold on is the last 2 minutes of the movie. That all that actually happened. He actually killed that woman and
Yeah.
and
And
ran
he's in
off.
the asylum.
Everything else
Yeah.
before that, I'm not certain any of that actually happened.
There are
Or it didn't happen.
right. Well, like I said, I think you overstated my point a little bit. I do think we are supposed to question everything, right? I do believe that once he's off his medications, that's when reality starts sinking in for him. For me, everything once he gets off the everything post him getting off drugs does occur. But the question of like, does he really get pulled out and everyone's adulating him? It's like, does that even happen? I don't know. But I do know. I do think there should still be some ambiguity as to whether or not he's actually Thomas Wayne's son. I know what you're about to say, but my point being is, I agree. I don't think he is. But the thing is, the overall story of her having his child and Thomas Wayne covering it up, right, and there being actual documents for it, all of that makes sense to a point. I do agree that he's not Thomas Wayne's son, because Thomas Wayne would have covered that up better, and he would have set her up with some cash. Like, he wouldn't have dropped her the way they do in the movie. So I agree with you that he's not.
To me,
but
the
I think
whole
you were
thing
meant
was
to question all of it.
Yeah, but to me, the whole point about the possibility of being Bruce's brother, half brother, that's the one part of the movie I could have dealt without, because it still ended up disregarding it. It threw it away anyway.
Yeah. Well, but no,
that was the only problem and I don't even say problem. That was the only nitpick I had, was like, eh.
Well, see, that's a part I love, because what it does is it actually completely strips him of identity. That's the scene where he's like, I'm not a Fleck, I'm not a Wayne, I'm nothing.
Yeah, that I agree with.
Because he's this child.
Yeah.
It even says he has no name. They don't know who his parents are in the adoption papers. He's nobody, which is why when he embraces Joker, he's like, I am the one thing that he called me.
And it was
Joker.
It was a throwaway line
Yeah.
from them, which was basically just, can you call me Joker? Why? Because that's how you refer to me, just some Joker.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to be.
And all of this conversation is why I don't like this movie. This would have been the only detective comic movie that I've watched where I would be excited for a sequel. Not Man of Steel, not any of this other stuff over the past, 5 years or so. This would be one where I would be ready to go for a sequel.
That's where it's like, I want to see this universe's Batman. I want to see what a genuine, real-world Batman would look like, and I think it would not look like anything we would expect.
So again, Detective Comics messing up. Warner Brothers, better.
Either your show or our show, we're gonna have this out one day.
Yes.
That's because your other co-host, I don't think can stand up. I got you. Okay. I got you covered.
I'm ready.
We'll ring the bell on that one, and we'll throw down. Guys, this was a hell of a show. I like this. I like the debate that this movie has brought, which is not the joke that we always have is we're never going to go see a movie that we don't like. I will say this is the first movie that I felt like I was like, eh. I mean, Sean and y'all are like, dude, we got to see this. Like, I could give or take on this one. I'm glad I did go see it, because it's one of the few movies, like I said, that I thought, I'm going to go see this movie and I'm not going to like it. And I was wrong.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just more about me. I don't know.
What you say is like we were forced to see this amazing, horrible movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's not amazingly horrible. It is both amazing and horrible.
Hard to watch, man.
It's a hard watch, but I think in many cases, in many ways, is very much a necessary watch for people. I think if there's anything you walk away from this movie, it should be, is there somebody out there that I could be a little bit nicer to and maybe help them out a little bit and maybe prevent them from becoming, clearly not the Joker,
the worst
version of themselves,
yeah.
Right? That's the thing. Is you're not, this is an extreme case, but people do harm themselves. They harm other people because they need a little bit of compassion.
Yeah.
Hug a person, please. Be nice. Don't be jerks or pricks to everyone that you see.
Amber,
get the F off of me, man.
Amber Geiger going on?
Too soon? Not on the show. Not on the show.
Too soon. You know what, though? I will say this. Man, did the brother of the victim at 18 show a lot of us what a person, what a human can be. I will say that. On that note, guys, go be a human to somebody. Don't
Not
be
Genesis.
a jerk.
But somebody.
Ow. Sign us out.
All right.
Wait, hang on. We got to get our final plugs in for these folks coming in. Where can we find you?
Oh, again.
That's what we were going to do.
That's what I was about to say.
Thanks for skipping that, Zach.
Thanks for looking out, Zach.
Hey.
All right. So, ANX. Where can we find y'all?
Everywhere. Social media. Let's do Facebook. Let's do Instagram. Let's get those going at ANX Gamecast. And Google us, ANX Gamecast, for our podcast.
That's y'all's official theme song
Yeah,
from now
yeah,
on.
new official themes. I mean, we're on Spotify.
And you're at Retropalooza
We're going
on.
to be on Retropalooza October 19th and 20th at the Arlington Convention Center. Come see us again. Say you saw us on Vagabond Nerds. We'll give you free entries to our giveaways.
Excellent. And again, a shout out to everybody who's watching us and putting up with him specifically. And thank you to Titan Comics. Again, Jeremy, he would love to see you. Go and buy stuff from him, titancomics.com. You can find us. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook. The website will be returning as soon as we get it debugged and get it some more, and some antivirals in it.
We're just going to say that Jason needs to stop watching what he watches. Keep going.
All right. Anyway, until then, we'll see y'all next time. And yes, I'll be at Jefferson, but I think we have one more episode before that. So, all right. I think we're good, guys. We'll see y'all next time.
Is it
This is DallasOnAir.com.